how can you combine information from two or three columns into a single column in Excel? Or how can you take one specific piece of information from a cell and extract it into a separate column? We are going to look at several practical examples involving sales data, HR records, company email addresses, and more. And in this first example, I have a sales table containing several products that were sold. However, the company system placed all the information inside a very long cell, as we can see here in the first row. However, look at this. This is not organized very well. Why is this a problem? Because I only need the product name located in the middle of the text, which is in the first row, is 1TB gaming laptop. In the other rows, I have different products: 4K Ultra monitor, Pro gaming headset, comfortable gaming chair, etc. I only want to extract the product name. I do not want to keep all this information together in the same cell. Normally, what I would have to do, I would have to open each cell, select everything I do not want to use, and delete it manually. But look how many rows I have to do the same process. I could expend the entire day doing that, right? Instead of, we are going to use a tool, call it Flash Fill. Flash Fill. Flash Fill allows me to take only the information I need and place it in another cell or another column. It can repeat the process for all the products in the table, even when every product name is different. And in the second example, we'll work with an HR spreadsheet. And for sure, you can download this Excel file, this practice file, and follow along with me so you can complete each step yourself. This HR table contains employees who were recently hired by the company. And what do I need to do with this information? The first name and the last name were imported into separate columns because that's how the company's system exported the data. And I want to couple those columns. Instead of having, let's say, Carla in one column and Johnson Parker in another, I want to have the complete name together in one single cell. Carla, Johnson, Parker, just coupled together in one single column. I'd also like to automatically create a company email address for each new employee. For example, if the employee is Anna Smith, I could create an address such as smith.anna@email.com. And can Excel do that for us? Yes, it can. We can use Excel to combine columns, to separate informations, and to extract just a text within the cells. And we can create also new patterns and much more. That's exactly what we are going to learn in this video. And by saying that, let's begin with the first example in the sales worksheet. We already know that we only want to extract the product name. And here is my recommendation. First, we can identify the exact test we need. It doesn't matter whether the information appears at the beginning, in the middle, or at the end of the cell. We can select only the part that we want to extract. And in this case, I need only the laptop name, 1TB gaming laptop. So I'll double click the cell to enter the editing mode. Then I click, hold, and drag over only the product name, 1TB gaming laptop. Once the exactly test is selected, we can copy it. And in Excel, we can use the keyboard shortcut key for this process, that is the Ctrl+C. We are going to use as well another shortcut keys in a moment, but first, let me hit Ctrl+C to copy the selected test. Now we can press Escape to exit the cell edit mode. Next, we can go to the first empty row directly beside the existing table, and this part is important. It's crucial, very, very important. Be mindful because the new column needs to be immediately to the side of to your data. Let's say I cannot jump all the way to the column L and leave several complete empty columns in between, because the flash fail works best when the new column is directly beside the original data. That's how we need to do it. Now, add a heading to the new column. Adding a clear heading, meaningful name is always a good practice. For this example, I'll type product name, press enter to confirm. And I'll also widen the column by placing the pointer between the column letters, clicking, holding, and dragging to the right. In the first cell below the new heading, press Ctrl+V to paste the product name we copied, 1TB gaming laptop. Now click the cell directly below it and then press Ctrl+E. That's all you need to do. Very, very simple. Excel has now extract the product names for the other rows that we have in this data set. However, we cannot assume that every result is automatically correct, because flash fail, the tool we are using here, can occasionally misunderstand the pattern. And for sure, I'll show you how to fix that problem in just a second. Maybe, let's say another problem. Ctrl+E did not work on your computer. In that case, you can use the flash fail command on the Excel ribbon itself. Let me undo the result so I can demonstrate it to you. Ctrl+Z. However, you do not need to repeat this step if Ctrl+E already worked for you. Once the first example has been entered, click on the cell directly below it, go to Data, and all the way here to the right side of the ribbon, we have HIN, flash fail. That's basically the same tool we activate with the Ctrl+E shortcut key. We can either use the keyboard shortcut key or click the flash fail button. I'll click it now. 3, 2, 1, go. And there we go again. Excel fails the column in exactly the same way as before. Did the first row work correctly? Yes, Excel returned 1TB gaming laptop. And what about another row? The second one. It's very important to check a few examples. You do not need to manually verify every single row, but you should check 3, 4, or 5 cells. This is my recommendation, okay? Check one near the beginning, one somewhere here in the middle, and one just here near the end. That gives you a much better idea of whether Excel understood the pattern correctly. Let's check this one, 4K Ultra monitor. Let me highlight the entire row just to make it easier to see. And now let me compare with the original text. Yes, maybe it's right, because the original text product is exactly the same, 4K Ultra monitor. So that won't work it. Now what we can do, we can check the third row. And it says black keyboard, and it appears that some of the product name is missing. We can compare it with the original text, and the complete product name is black keyboard and mouse combo. So yes, Excel let out this last part of the name. Does that mean that the flash view does not work? No. To understand what happened here, we need to understand first how flash fail works. Excel looks at the example you entered and tries to identify the pattern behind it. In this case, I entered 1TB gaming laptop. Excel analyzed the original text and tried to understand why I select that specific portion of the cell. Then it attempts to apply the same logic to every other row we have in the dataset. However, Excel does not always understand the correct pattern from only one single example, and that's exactly what happened here. It returned an incomplete product name in the third row, and maybe in other rows as well. When flash fail makes a mistake, we can provide another correct example on the row where the error occurred. Excel used the correction to better understand the pattern and update the remaining results. Let's correct this example. In the original data, we can select the product name, black keyboard and mouse combo. We can copy it. We can use again Ctrl+C. Then we can go to the results cell where the flash fill made the mistake. We can double click the cell, select the incorrect text, and replace it with the complete product name. And notice that Excel may already preview the suggestions here for us in the remaining rows. That happens because Excel recognizes that we are correcting the pattern of the flash fill. Let me press Enter. And now Excel updates the additional rows based on the new example. And this time the result appears to be corrected, right? We have now learned how to extract information from Excel and how to correct flash fill when it does not understand the pattern on the first attempt. We can try a second one, a third one, and so on. Now let's move on to our next example. I'll open the HR worksheet. As you guys can see here, we are going to begin with something simpler, combining two columns. We currently have the first name in one column and the last name in another different column. When we combine those two pieces of information, we get the employee's full name. In the next empty column, we can have the name full name. And in the cell underneath it, we can start the pattern. I'll maybe widen this column so the longer names are fully visible. And I'll also maybe apply a yellow fill to the full name heading here and to the cells underneath, so it's easy to identify while I'm teaching this example. Home tab, fill color, yellow, and maybe to the headers as well. Yellow fill, maybe I can go with a darker one. Okay. Now let me click on the first cell just below the first header. For this example, I'm not going to copy and paste anything. I'll type the first result manually, so you can see that flash fill also works when you enter your own example. In the first cell, we can type Anna Smith. Make sure there is a space between the first name and the last name to separate those from each other. Hit Enter. Go to the cell directly below it and press again Ctrl+E shortcut key. And that's it. Excel combines the first and the last name for the entire employee list. We can check a few results here, and some cells are for sure right. However, other cells are blank. But why is that? Because again, flash fill in this case did not understand the full pattern. Ryan, okay, it's correct. However, this one here is not right. So let me try this one. Go to the third cell and write the full name. Once you're done with the name, just hit Enter. And okay, now the flash fill understands it's exactly what I was looking for. And just to make sure, let me go to a certain name randomly, let's say at the end here, and see if everything is right. Okay, now it seems that the flash fill understand the pattern. Now we can go to the second column, email, and this new column will make it easier to organize the company email addresses that need to be created for each employee. And what pattern will we use for the email addresses? This example is interesting because we are not simply copying the information that already appears in one cell. We are using existing information to create a completely new value. For Anna Smith, I'll create smith.anna at example, or just at .com, for example. That's it. I'm not using a domain just because I don't want to get sued by anybody, right? But you can use the full address that's going to work. Notice that when I hit enter here, Excel understands the email format. And another thing is, everything is written in lowercase. First, I use the last name of the employee, Smith, then period, then the employee's first name, Anna, in this example, and finally I add at.com. Excel can identify and repeat this pattern throughout all the rows we have, but what happens when an employee has a long or multi-part last name? For example, if the employee's name is Daniel Brooks Taylor Adams, will Excel use Brooks, Taylor, or Adams? We want Excel to use only the final word of the last name, which is, in this case, Adams. Let's see what happens in practice, right? I have entered here the first email address, hit entered. Now click the cell below and press Ctrl+E. Yeah, that did not work very well as before, as we had. Maybe it's look the same problem as the column before. Look at all the blank cells and the results we have. What we can do when this happens, we have two options. We can correct the errors one at a time, or we can enter 3, 4, or 5 complete examples before using the flash fail. And the more examples you provide, the easier it is for Excel to understand exactly what we want. For this demonstration, I'm going to delete the result, and I'm going to use the second approach. So select the cell in the email column, and then we can press delete. That's it. For the first one, Anna Smith, let's go with, again, smith.anna at .com, for example. For Brian, I'm going with his last name dot his first name at .com. For Carla, I'm going with Parker dot end. Notice that Excel may already begin to display a preview of the remaining email addresses, and that is a sign that it's starting to understand the pattern. And I'll still enter one more example. For Daniel, I'm going to use adams.daniel@.com. Hit enter. Finally, this is the last example. Now we have provided enough information. 1, 2, 3, 4 different information, and click next empty cell and press Ctrl+E. Perfect. Excel has now filled the remaining email addresses. Let's check an example near the end of the list. Let's say Oliver Clark becomes Clark Oliver. Compare it with the original name. Yes, Clark's the final last name and Oliver is the first name. The pattern worked correctly in this case. For our final example, let's create something a little more advanced. We are going to build a complete sentence using information from several columns. I want to create an employee summary that contains the employee's first name, job title, and annual salary, for example. We could use the employee's full name, but that would make the sentence much longer, I think, so I'm only going to use the first name. The first example will look like this. Anna works as an administrative assistant. and earns $48,000. Hit enter. So the first part of the sentence is Anna, and then works as an administrative assistant, and finally earns $48,000. And let me adjust that just to make more complete, per year. And I want to change the dollars text to a symbol, US dollars. Enter. Let me widen this column quite a bit. Now click the cell directly below and press Ctrl+E. Excel creates the summaries for the other employees, but did it work correctly? I don't think so. Let's say those texts are not very English, let's say that way. So we need to properly correct those cells. So in the second cell, what I can do is I can just make sure I write the correct sentence. Ryan works as a financial analyst and earns $72,000. It's correct, per year. So we replace the incorrect sentence with the correct one. We can press enter, and Excel may update some of the other results automatically, but I don't think those are all correct, as we can see in this third example. So while we can see with this third one, we can make sure we correct it again. So this one is Carla. Let's go here, open up the cell, select everything, and then Carla works as an marketing coordinator. Let me just check for the spelling if I did not make a typo here. Okay, I think it's right. And earns USD dollars that are equal to $85,000 per year. Let me hit enter. And finally, now let's check an example near to the bottom. And it looks like everything is perfect. And that brings us to the end of today's video. I hope this tutorial helped you understand how to use flash fill to combine, separate, extract, clean, and create information in Microsoft Excel without formulas. Whenever you use the flash fill, remember to provide a clear example and verify a few results throughout the list. When Excel does not understand the pattern correctly, add another example or correct one of the incorrect results. If you have any questions or any suggestions for the future videos, leave them in the comments. And if you enjoy this type of content, comment more Excel videos. So I know you like to see more practical Excel tutorials. And thanks for watching, and I see you in the next one.